As a real estate investor, you're looking at a property. The numbers look great, and the seller says the tenants have been there for 10 years and never missed a payment. Sounds like a dream? In Canada, that dream quickly can become a nightmare if you don't do one thing: read the actual lease. Because in Canada, you don't just buy the building, you're inheriting a legal contract. You step into the shoes of the previous owner, and if those shoes have holes, you're the one who's going to have their feet wet. Today, I'm breaking down 4 reasons you must look at those leases and what your realtor needs to be demanding before you waive conditions. Reason number 1: the handshake agreement trap. Long term tenants and old school landlords often have side deals that aren't in the paperwork. Maybe the old owner told them that they could use the garage for free, or that they could park their RV in the lawn, or they don't have to pay a pet fee. If a tenant's been doing something for years with the landlord's permission, it becomes the de facto part of the lease. If you don't have a written agreement or documents to verify the actual terms, you have no way to disprove these claims or enforce a change. You might think you're getting a vacant garage to rent out for an extra $200 a month, only to find out it's legally tied to Unit A for $0. This is why I always tell my investors, get everything in writing and make sure it's documented. Never do something that would damage a future deal with a new buyer. Don't make any side deals or it's fine for now deals. This is an investment, so make sure you're protecting your asset. As a realtor that helps investors, I am always asking if there's been deals made outside of the lease or verbally between the tenant and the landlord. I also get both of them to sign an acknowledgement and have this done through the lawyer. This is golden if something comes up later and it's the old, well, my previous landlord. Now my clients can say, nope, you had the opportunity and didn't tell me about it previously. Reason number 2: who actually pays the bills? You need to know exactly who is responsible for what. In Canada, if a lease is silent or vague about utilities like water, hydro, lawn care, the landlord and tenant board will almost always default the cost to you, the landlord. I've heard horror stories of investors who buy a triplex thinking the tenant pays their own heat, only to realize that the lease said utilities included. In a Canadian winter, that mistake can wipe out your entire year's profit. You need to see the lease to confirm that the net income the seller promised you is the actual net and not the gross minus the massive heating bill. Here's a pro tip: if you are responsible for the utilities, ask to see the bills from the last full year, not just the past 3 months. This gives you a true understanding of the financial situation so you can compare it to the P&L they provide you and to make sure that it's all adding up. I'm always telling my investors, keep a running list of repairs and updates in Excel sheet. This way you can track if there's a specific unit that's becoming a major problem or if you have a problem tenant. Reason number 3: the estoppel factor. Don't just take the lease at face value. You need a tenant certificate. This is a simple one-page document the tenant signs that confirms, yes, this lease is the real one, my rent is $1,800, and my deposit was $900. Why does this matter? It stops the tenant from coming to you after closing, say, oh, I actually had a secret $500 security deposit I paid in 2018 that isn't on the lease, or the old tenant promised me a rent credit this month. Once they sign the estoppel, they are basically legally barred from claiming anything different. It's the truth insurance. I see so many realtors not getting this done, and truthfully, I don't know what else they are missing for their clients' protection. If your realtor isn't asking for it, ask your lawyer. But the best time is during the conditional period, as this gives you a chance to negotiate or walk away from a bad investment. Reason number 4: security deposit math. In Ontario, you only usually have last month's rent deposit. Here's the kicker: you're responsible for returning that money when the tenant leaves, plus interest in many cases. If the seller doesn't give you credit for those deposits at closing, you are essentially paying that money out of your own pocket later. If you haven't seen the lease, you don't know the exact dollar amount plus interest that you are now on the hook for. Remember, any unpaid interest that is accumulated for the tenant over the years becomes your debt the moment you buy the building. Keep in mind the 12-month Ontario rule. In Ontario, for example, the tenant can generally go back 1 year to claim any or deduct unpaid interest via the landlord tenant board, but you still want that credit at closing so you aren't starting your own ownership in the red. So, what do you do now? Tell your realtor that a lease review is a non negotiable condition of your offer. You want the original lease, all amendments, and tenant certificate. If you're an investor and you're tired of guessing if a deal is good, I've put together a due diligence checklist specifically for Canadian rentals. Comment the word lease below and I'll send it to you so you can make sure your next deal is a gold mine, not a landmine.